Imagine trying to run a massive global infrastructure company. A company that builds the literal foundations of our cities, metros, railways, dams.
Right.
Your contracts are worth billions, and they span years. Now, on top of all that, imagine your home country's inflation has shot up over 200% in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every number you report is measured with a rubber ruler. This is a truly high-stakes game of global finance, and today we are going deep inside the engine room of one of the world's heavy hitters.
That's exactly right. We're doing a really focused deep dive here, one that's tailored specifically for you, the interested investor. We've got the Q3 2025 consolidated financial statements and the annual report from Gülermak, Ağır, Sanayi, İnşaat ve Ağır.
Okay.
And our whole mission today is to cut through all the complexity of their inflation-adjusted figures. It's a standard called TMS 29, and just pull out the clearest, most relevant insights about where they stand.
That is the challenge we live for, simplifying the dense. Now, before we unpack all those figures, if you find value in this kind of sharp, actionable analysis, please smash that like button, subscribe to our channel if you haven't, and share this deep dive.
It really helps.
It really does. And hey, if you want to support us in making more of these in-depth research videos, please take a moment to evaluate becoming a channel member. Welcome. Let's first get to know the company a little.
Let's do it.
We're looking at a Turkish company, but one with really deep roots. It was officially founded in Ankara back in 1976, but their actual history in construction goes all the way back to 1958.
And they are a pure-play, leading international EPC contractor.
EPC, so that's engineering, procurement, and construction.
Exactly. Think of them as the people who build these massive solutions from scratch. Their whole core business is delivering huge infrastructure projects on a, what they call a turnkey basis.
So we're talking about things like metro tunnels.
Oh, yeah. Over 300 kilometers of them, 120 underground stations. They've also laid down more than 1,500 kilometers of railways. They're literally building the skeleton of modern cities.
And it's not just transport.
No, they also do roads, dams, and industrial facilities. Things like cement and power plants.
And the scale of this is just immense. The headquarters are in Gölbaşı, Ankara, but their footprint is, it's global.
It really is. They're active in places like Poland, Romania, Switzerland, India, the Philippines, North Macedonia, the UAE. The list goes on.
Operating through 8 branches, over 100 projects done worldwide. They're a true exporter of technical know-how.
Yeah, and one structural fact we should probably address right away is the labor force. As of September 2025, they had 3,076 employees.
Okay.
But here's the thing. That's a big reduction from the 3,847 they had at the end of 2024.
Wow, it's nearly 800 people. That's a huge shift in just 9 months. For you, the listener, what does a headcount adjustment like that even signify in a firm like this? Is it, a sign of belt tightening, or is it about efficiency?
It's most likely a strategic combination of both, right? In construction, you often see reductions like this when projects move from the early labor-intensive phases to the more capital and equipment-heavy final stages.
Oh, okay.
So it suggests they're getting more efficient in how they execute projects. But we do have to watch if it affects their ability to bid on, multiple huge projects at the same time.
Got it. Let's talk about the capital structure. For anyone following GLRMK on the Borsa Istanbul, the big event was the IPO on January 17th, 2025.
Exactly. That public offering was a key moment. They had 38.76 million TL nominal value shares start trading. Their paid-in capital is now at 322.6 million TL.
And who owns the company?
It's very concentrated. 2 main entities, Gülermak Emlak Yapı and Gülermak Tourism Işletme, they control nearly 88% of the company together.
So the public float, the other category, is just around 12%.
That's it.
That low float could mean liquidity is a bit tight, but it also shows very strong, concentrated corporate control. Speaking of control, what's the governance like?
The board has 6 members, and 2 of them are independent. We should also note, just as a factual disclosure from the report, there are currently 0 female representatives among those 6 board members.
A relevant detail for anyone assessing corporate structure. What about the cost of that leadership? Executive pay.
The report shows that the total financial rights and payments to the board and senior management for the first 9 months of 2025 was over 42 million inflation-adjusted TL.
Okay, so that gives us a clear marker of the internal cost to run this massive international operation.
It does.
All right, let's unpack this operation. The sector, their competitive position, they're in urban infrastructure and mass transit, a really complex space globally. How do they stack up against their international rivals?
This is where their strength just becomes so obvious. The engineering news record, the ENR,
Which is basically the gold standard for these rankings.
it is. They placed Gülermak 13th in the entire world in the mass transit and rail category for 2023.
13, globally. That isn't just regional expertise. That's a world-class technical rank. It proves they can land and execute the most difficult projects anywhere.
This is their license to operate on the global stage, and you can see it in their financials. They break down their operations into Turkey, the West, which is mainly high-value contracts in Poland, and the East.
The East being Romania, India, the Philippines.
Right. And the key strategic takeaway here is diversification. Roughly 76% of their total income for the first 9 months of 2025 came from those international operations.
76%. That number is fascinating. It tells you that even though their roots are Turkish, their financial stability is really anchored abroad. Does that shield them from those domestic inflation pressures we talked about?
Absolutely. It's a critical buffer. It means the majority of their income is tied to foreign currency contracts, shielding them from the volatility of the Turkish lira. They're building their financial resilience outside of that high inflation zone.
Let's talk about the most important metric for any construction company. The backlog. This is their guaranteed future revenue. What are we looking at here? What's in the treasure chest?
It is enormous. As of September 30, 2025, their total backlog was 229.034 billion inflation-adjusted lira.
Wow.
Now, that is a slight dip from the 239 billion at the end of 2024, but it still guarantees several years of really strong revenue visibility.
And what are they actually guaranteeing to build with that money?
Specialized rail, an overwhelming 76.7% of that massive backlog is specifically in metro, rail, and tramway projects. This is their strategic pillar. They're specialists.
Okay, so let's run a quick SWOT analysis on this. What's the blueprint look like?
The strengths are pretty undeniable. You've got a world-class ranking, that huge 229 billion lira revenue pipeline, and great diversification with 76% of revenue coming from international projects.
And the weaknesses?
Weaknesses would be the reliance on public sector contracts, which can be slow to pay, and as we'll see, a pretty significant exposure to foreign currency translation risks. We also saw that slight dip in sales year over year.
Okay, so where are the growth opportunities?
They're actively chasing them. They're making an aggressive move into renewable energy targeting 300 megawatts, and they've already secured over 100 through acquisitions in the UK and Poland.
That's a big pivot.
It is. And they've also secured a huge new contracts. There's a new metro in Ankara and this massive Sırbistan-Belgrade-Nis railway project, which is a 348.9 million euro contract. They're even starting a new mining company.
A mining company? Why?
It suggests a move to control their own input costs, a way to hedge. It's a very smart, vertically integrated move.
And finally, the threats.
The main threat is still that high inflation accounting environment, the TMS 29, which just complicates everything. And there's always project volatility, like a reported tender cancellation for the Warsaw Metro. Now we can move on to our analysis of the Q3 reports.
Let's do it.
But before we dive in, let's just quickly revisit that idea of inflation accounting. When we say inflation-adjusted lira, we mean every number is calculated in the purchasing power of September 30, 2025.
Okay.
It's necessary because Turkey's cumulative 3-year inflation hit 222% by then. It's like using a fixed scale to measure everything fairly.
Right. So under that fixed scale, how do they perform? Top-line revenue.
Consolidated revenue for the first 9 months of 2025 was 26.227 billion lira.
And how's that compared to last year?
It's actually a 7% decrease from the 28.234 billion in the same period of 2024.
A drop.
A drop, yes, but the story is in the mix. The share of metro and light rail revenue went down a bit, but their dedicated railway project share jumped. I mean, it jumped big from 9.8% to 19.2% of total revenue.
So they're deliberately shifting focus to a different, maybe more profitable vertical.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really compelling for investors.
Yeah.
The margin story. Even with that 7% dip in sales, they achieved just remarkable margin expansion.
Okay, so how much did gross profit improve?
Dramatically. Gross profit went from 3.6 billion lira to 4.46 billion. This pushed the gross profit margin up from 12.8% to 17.0%.
Whoa, that is a 4.2 percentage point jump. in a high-inflation competitive sector that's almost unheard of. How?
It speaks to pricing power and superior project selection. They're securing these high-margin international contracts, and you couple that with the efficiencies from the headcount changes, and they're just generating way more profit for every lira of revenue.
I assume EBITDA followed suit.
It did. The EBITDA margin rose right alongside it, from 13.0% to 17.3%.
And the bottom line, net profit.
It saw a modest but very stable increase, rose from 3.55 billion TL to 3.76 billion TL, pushing the net profit margin up from 12.6% to 14.3%.
So the story's clear. Efficiency and better margins are more than making up for a slight drop in sales.
That's the story.
Okay, let's switch over to the balance sheet. After the IPO, how safe is this company? Let's talk about those financial safety cushions, the liquidity ratios.
The balance sheet has been dramatically stabilized. This is probably the biggest piece of news for a long-term investor. The current ratio.
Which is current assets versus short-term debt.
Right. It improved sharply from 1.76 at the end of last year to 2.33 now.
And the acid test ratio, the stricter one.
That also soared, from 1.75 to 2.31.
So what does a ratio above 2.3 really mean for a retail investor?
It means their short-term health is fantastic. They have more than double the liquid assets they need to cover all their short-term debts, and they don't have to sell off inventory to do it. It's an extremely resilient position.
Great. Next up, solvency. How much are they relying on debt versus their own equity?
Their reliance on debt is falling. Total liabilities to total assets improved from 0.80 down to 0.71. But the real game changer is the shareholders' equity to total liabilities ratio.
Okay.
It improved dramatically, from 0.25 to 0.41.
Wow, that is a massive jump. Explain what that means, going from a quarter to almost half.
It means the company is far, far less leveraged. Before, their own equity only covered a quarter of their debts. Now it covers almost half. It's a huge stabilization of their financial structure. It just signals lower risk for investors.
And we know where that strength came from, the IPO.
Precisely. The IPO generated 3.421 billion lira, specifically in share premiums.
So just a pure, immediate cash injection.
Exactly. And that's what fueled the big rise in total equity, from around 10.3 billion TL to almost 16.4 billion. The IPO was designed to fundamentally de-risk the balance sheet, and it clearly worked.
Okay, finally, let's look at cash flow. Operating cash flow was down a bit.
Yes, from 2.9 billion down to about 2 billion. But the real action is in investing cash flow.
CFI? Right.
Net cash used in investing activities actually doubled. It rose from about 550 million TL to 1.24 billion TL.
And that's not a bad thing.
No, not at all. It's a signal that management is actively putting capital to work for future growth. They're moving from a stable position into an aggressive growth phase.
So they're putting that IPO money to work. Where'd it go?
Mostly two places. Higher spending on tangible fixed assets. That was about 1.28 billion TL, and the acquisition of a subsidiary, which is part of their strategic push into renewables.
So they're investing in capacity and diversification, which is exactly what you want to see when you have a 229 billion lira backlog to get through.
Precisely. And even with all that spending, they still ended the period with a really robust 10.1 billion lira in cash.
Okay, so let's tie this all together. What's the narrative for the person watching this deep dive?
The narrative is one of strategic resilience built on specialization. Gülermak is a construction powerhouse that used its IPO to dramatically de-risk its financial structure.
Right.
And even with that slight revenue dip, they just achieved superior operational efficiency. I mean, that gross margin jump from 12.8% to 17.0% tells you everything.
So with a massive rail backlog and a smart move into renewables, they're set up for the long term.
It seems so. They appear strategically robust and positioned for global growth, largely insulated from those domestic headwinds because of their 76% international focus.
That is a sharp, comprehensive picture of an international giant. If you found value in this analysis, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Share this deep dive and tell us in the comments. Which of these strategic moves, the high-margin specialization, the pivot to renewables, or strengthening the balance sheet, do you think is most important for their future?
Good question.
And we also encourage you to evaluate our channel membership to support us in making ongoing, in-depth analysis videos just like this one.
And here's a final thought for you to mull over. We noted that 76% of their revenue comes from international contracts, often in stronger currencies like the euro. However, when they bring those results back into inflation-adjusted lira, that currency volatility still hits hard. Their income statement shows a staggering loss of 1.175 billion lira in the first 9 months of 2025.
Wow.
Solely from what they call non-operational foreign currency translation differences. So the real challenge for them isn't winning contracts. It's whether their hedging strategies can contain this massive currency risk and stop it from eating away at the fantastic operational margins they've achieved. Think about that high wire act as you look at their future.